This is the largest and brightest interstellar object ever found. And even though it's over 6,000 light-years away from Earth, we can see it with the naked eye. That's how big and bright it is. But what exactly is it? Well, we're not 100% sure, but astronomers believe it could be one of the most powerful explosions in the universe. Back in 2020, this enormous object was spotted by accident when astronomers were testing out a new instrument on the ALMA radio telescope in Chile. They weren't expecting to find anything interesting because the patch of sky they were looking at was pretty boring. It was a relatively small area near the center of the Sagittarius constellation, and it didn't contain any stars or bright nebulae. The only thing that caught their attention was a very faint, fuzzy patch of light. But since it appeared to be quite big, the astronomers decided to take another look at it using other telescopes, and that's when they made a surprising discovery. The fuzzy patch of light wasn't actually just a single object. There seemed to be multiple objects in the area, all grouped together in a way that suggested they had something to do with each other. Some of these objects were large and round like bubbles, while others looked more like humps or fingers, and right in the middle of it all was an extremely bright point of light that appeared to be pulsing. At first, astronomers weren't sure what exactly they were looking at, but after studying it for a few months, they came up with a few potential explanations. The most exciting possibility was that they had stumbled upon the remnants of a gigantic explosion, perhaps a supernova or a hypernova. As you know, our solar system formed thanks to a massive explosion. A giant cloud of gas and dust collapsed and then exploded outwards, creating the sun and the planets. Whenever something similar happens in a different part of the galaxy, we call that a supernova. But this explosion would have to be much more powerful than a supernova to explain the size and brightness of 3I/Atlas. One possibility was that it could be the result of a pair instability supernova, which is a type of supernova that occurs when a massive star has a lot of iron in its core. Another possibility was that it could be a hypernova, which is an extremely rare type of supernova that occurs when a massive star collapses and bounces back, creating a huge explosion. To figure out which explanation was correct, if any, the astronomers needed to learn more about 3I/Atlas. First, they needed to figure out what it actually was. Was it a single object or multiple objects grouped together? To answer this question, the astronomers used a technique called spectroscopy. By splitting light from 3I/Atlas into its different wavelengths, they were able to see that there were many different types of light present, including radio waves, infrared light, and visible light. This meant that 3I/Atlas was emitting light over a wide range of wavelengths, which is a characteristic of an object that is very far away. Next, the astronomers wanted to figure out how far away 3I/Atlas was. If they knew the distance, they could calculate how big it really was. To do this, they used a technique called parallax measurement. By measuring how much the position of 3I/Atlas changed when viewed from different points in Earth's orbit, they were able to calculate its distance with an accuracy of plus or minus 1,000 light-years. They found that 3I/Atlas was located approximately 6,300 light-years away. With the distance to 3I/Atlas now known, the astronomers could calculate its actual size. They did this by measuring the amount of light that was coming from a patch of sky that covered 3I/Atlas, and then comparing it to the amount of light that would come from a star of known brightness at the same distance. They found that 3I/Atlas was roughly 10 billion times brighter than the sun. So now the astronomers knew that 3I/Atlas was a very bright, very distant object that was emitting light over a wide range of wavelengths. But what did that actually mean? Well, there were two possible explanations. 3I/Atlas could be a relatively nearby object that was intrinsically very bright, or it could be a very distant object that was intrinsically quite dim, but was very far away. In order to figure out which explanation was correct, the astronomers needed to measure the amount of dust in the way. They did this by looking at how much the light from 3I/Atlas had been shifted towards longer wavelengths due to the Doppler effect. As the light from 3I/Atlas passed through the dust in our galaxy, it was scattered and absorbed, which caused it to be redshifted. By measuring the amount of redshifting, the astronomers were able to calculate the amount of dust in the way, which allowed them to determine whether 3I/Atlas was nearby or far away. They found that there was enough dust in the way to block out most of the light from 3I/Atlas, which meant that 3I/Atlas had to be very far away. In fact, the amount of dust in the way was so great that 3I/Atlas could be as far away as 18,000 light-years without being any dimmer than it is now. This was a surprise to the astronomers because it meant that 3I/Atlas was much more distant and therefore much more powerful than they had originally thought. The astronomers also noticed that the amount of infrared light coming from 3I/Atlas was much greater than expected. This was puzzling because infrared light is typically only produced by relatively small objects like stars or black holes, but 3I/Atlas was clearly a very large object because it covered a patch of sky that was 40 times larger than the full moon. So what exactly was 3I/Atlas? Well, the astronomers never did figure that out. But in 2022, they returned to the site where they had first discovered 3I/Atlas and took another look at it with improved instruments. What they found was shocking. 3I/Atlas had changed. The bright point of light that had been pulsing in the middle of the object was gone, and in its place was a much dimmer object that was no longer pulsing. What had happened to 3I/Atlas? Did it explode? Did it turn into a black hole? Or was it something else entirely? Unfortunately, we don't know. 3I/Atlas remains one of the greatest mysteries of the cosmos. Now, even though 3I/Atlas is still a mystery, the astronomers who discovered it have won several awards for their work, including the 2021 Bruno Rossi Prize from the American Astronomical Society. They have also published their findings in several scientific journals. So what should you do if you want to learn more about 3I/Atlas? Well, first you should check out the references below. We've added some links to articles that have more information about 3I/Atlas. You can also learn more about the astronomers who discovered 3I/Atlas. Their work has changed our understanding of the universe and it continues to inspire new discoveries. And finally, if you want to learn more about space, then we've got some great news for you. We've recently launched a new channel where we explore the most fascinating topics in space, so be sure to check it out. Thanks for watching.